This is the Sweet Song Podcast where we unwrap your favorite songs. I'm your host, Kristi York Wooten, and on this week's episode, we welcome Buddy Red, aka Messiah Harris. We'll talk about his latest musical project, his new single, Sold His Soul, his very surprising musical influences, and his famous family, including his dad, T.I. Welcome, Buddy.
Hey, glad to be here.
Hey. Your name is Messiah. That's your given birth name. I want to know if that name, how that made you feel. I think it's a very interesting choice that you've made to not use it as your professional name.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to kind of know your personal journey with making that decision.
Yeah, my name is Messiah, and for my whole life has been my name. That's a good question. I haven't thought about that. But I will say, like, these days, when people ask me, what I prefer to be called, I usually say Buddy because Messiah just sounds so large and, just in your face. And I feel like I'm not that type of person. I feel like Buddy just suits me more because, I don't know, it's a lot more subtle. I'll say that suits me a little bit more, unless I'm on the stage, of course.
Yeah, I love that it's a name, obviously, that also means friend, if somebody's your buddy. So it's a very kind of like welcoming name. And also, it does sound like an old guitar hero that may have come along in the blues days,
That's right.
In the 20s or 30s, a century ago. So I love that you've tapped into that. So let's talk about that because you're kind of really the first in your family amongst, I know some of your siblings through your dad have gone other musical routes, but you're kind of the first in your family to really strike it out as this unique sound that you're going for, which is a guitar-based sound akin to rock and blues. And a lot of the heroes that you mentioned that in your bio are, James Brown from right here in Georgia, Jimi Hendrix, and a lot of those are really apparent when you hear the music. So how did you come to be kind of the person of musical taste that you are?
Well, I've always known that I had a very unique taste in music just growing up around my family because, of course, I would love the things that, I was raised around, like New Edition, Destiny's Child, Tupac, Biggie, Outkast, and UGK and stuff like that. And of course, the things that, were popular at the time of me growing up, like Lil Wayne, Lloyd, Bobby O, who else? Carrie Hilson, that kind of stuff. Um, and I loved it all. It's just that as you get older and you kind of spend your own time away from family and you just start, seeing what life has to offer you as a person, that's when I started discovering like music for myself. I think it was around the time like YouTube first started becoming popular, 2007, 2008. So I was 7 or 8 and I was just, browsing the internet for the first time. And I think the first song that I discovered that made me say, whoa, why didn't my parents play any of this for me was Rick Astley. I think I got Rick rolled in the early days of YouTube. And I said, wait, what is this song? I found the song and I listened to his other songs and I said, wow, I really like this. And I remember playing it for my brothers, my sisters, my mother, father, and they would kind of look at me a little crazy, like, okay. That was the first hint that I had that, okay, I hear things or appreciate different kinds of music compared to my family. And for a long time, I felt a little odd with that realization because, I mean, what do I do with that? Of course, I'm going to keep listening to it, but what do I do with that unique taste in music I had? I didn't really know what to do with it. So I just kept listening to more and more music until I started playing the guitar. And then I think subconsciously, all those influences that I had in the past kind of reared their head. And I don't know, I think because of my taste in music from my early days and even now, I think it influenced a lot of my decisions musically. And my family may not be able to have the same music or musical thoughts as me because we listen to different things, you know? They don't really listen to the stuff that I listen to. I try to put them on all the time though, you know, I try to say, "Listen to this, listen to that," and it can be a little difficult, like, you know, having stuff, like, forced at you, so I understand, but, I think it started really young before I even knew that I wanted to be a musician.
I love that story and that you're proud to say that you like Rick Astley. I love that. And that you noticed at a young age that, you know, you had taste that you're like, wait a minute, I like this, I like that. In terms of, you know, every guitar player has their guitar hero. So who was it for you and when did that first happen? How old were you when you first heard your, because I know Rick Astley wasn't your guitar hero because he's not that role, but tell me about that. Who was your first guitar hero?
It is, it's kind of a two-part answer. I will say when I saw Bohemian Rhapsody, the movie about Queen and Freddie Mercury, when I saw that movie, that's when I was introduced to rock and roll. So in a weird way, Brian May was my first guitar hero because he was the only one that I really knew. And so I was listening to all the Queen stuff and just, I guess, immersing myself into rock and roll and discovering other rock and roll bands, but Brian May was the only one that I knew at the time of 18. I was 18. The only one that I knew of at the time until I started branching out a little bit more. And I would say that the first guitar player that I heard that I discovered for myself that really showed me what I wanted to do with the guitar was David Gilmour from Pink Floyd. He was the one that when I heard his guitar solos on Dark Side of the Moon, I said, "Okay, I didn't even know music could sound like this. This is what I wanna do." And then, you know, once I started discovering, like, the history of his sound, once I discovered that what he was doing was, you know, really bluesy and psychedelic with a whole bunch of reverberation and delay and, you know, distortion, but with intentional notes being played, I said, "Hmm." Okay, so how far does this rabbit hole go? Who was before David Gilmour? Who is responsible for David Gilmour? That's when I just got into this whole rabbit hole. But I would say David Gilmour was my first guitar hero.
I love that story, and I love what you said about Brian May as well. And I know in Rhapsody, the film, they recreate Live Aid, but have you seen the footage from the real Live Aid and Queen's performance?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was fun.
One of the best YouTube videos of all time now, right?
Man, it was to answer your question, yeah, as soon as I saw the movie, I had to see what the movie was based on. And when I saw that, it was, I mean, of course it was better than the movie, but man, I'm in awe still. Like when I think about Freddie Mercury's stage presence and the way he commands the attention and he made people sing in the crowd that, hey, that is something else. But yeah, I love that performance, the Live Aid performance.
Along with playing guitar, there, you know, there's songwriting, there's singing, there's all these elements of things that go together to, you know, the process of making records. And obviously, we mentioned earlier, we didn't say your dad's name, T.I. But you probably grew up watching people make records. And you grew up also with reality TV show being filmed around you and other things as well, probably, right? So how did those things influence you? Watching people make records, watching people make television. Did that help you when you're making these singles?
I will say from the television standpoint, it allowed me to be more comfortable being on camera, you know, maybe doing interviews and making appearances and stuff like that. I'm sure that the TV show helped with me. I mean, helped me in that regard 100%. As far as, you know, watching my family record records and stuff, maybe it had an effect on me subconsciously. Like, okay, I'm seeing it all the time. So I'm becoming more familiarized with, I guess, like the idea or the concept of getting into a recording booth and singing or saying something. It wasn't a foreign concept to me when I started doing it myself. So that feels like the only impact it's had on me. I didn't really, I was still very nervous getting into the booth for like, for the first time for my stuff. But I guess seeing it all the time, it had some kind of impact, you know, because like I said, I was used to seeing it and it wasn't a foreign concept to me. Because there are some people I'm sure that nobody in their family makes music and they decide to make music themselves. And they're getting in the recording booth for the first time or being the first one to, I guess, make that leap of faith. I can see that being intimidating if you haven't seen it before. So I will say, yeah, it's had that kind of impact on me.
What about Atlanta itself, spending time in Atlanta and knowing kind of the history of all the different music genres that burst out of Atlanta? You know, there's hip hop, but there's also country. There's a lot of wiggle room in Atlanta, I think, to be able to pursue what you want. Do you agree with that?
I will say that Atlanta has little pockets of everything. Like if you find at least one person that's in a particular crowd, then you might as well be inserted into that crowd as well because I don't know, it's a very personalized kind of group or multiple personalized groups down here. Let me see. But I digress. Like it's a whole bunch of small pockets. Like it's not a huge rock and roll scene out here, unless I'm missing out on something. Maybe there is, and I'm not aware. But to satisfy my craving of live music out here in Atlanta, and I make sure that I go to multiple open mic nights a week. On Mondays, there's Smith's Old Bar to do an open mic night. There's Northside Tavern. That's really where I started, I guess, getting my feet wet with live performance. And on Wednesdays, there's the East Atlanta Village Pub. They do a jam session these days. And, there are places like surrounding Atlanta as well that I make sure to touch here and there that also do jam sessions. So there is a live music scene here, but sometimes I wonder what other cities have to offer.
I was gonna say you could name your top other rock and roll cities. I don't know what that would be either right now. I always think Atlanta and LA are kind of in competition for certain, being better places to record certain genres. New York, I feel like, doesn't really have a scene right now that I know of. I mean, there was a scene in the early 2000s, but and then you've also got really historic places like Nashville and like Detroit and Memphis and different places where there's been scenes across the years. But let's switch gears now and talk about some of your latest recordings. And let's start with Soul to Soul and tell me a little bit about the process of writing and putting that together and making the record.
So that one, Sold His Soul, I started penning it maybe a couple of years ago. I'm 25 now, but I was probably 2021 when I started writing it. I I wrote it because I was upset and I was frustrated at the time. I was frustrated at the time because one of my brothers, they're in the music business in the music industry. They're an artist as well, and they've been doing it a little bit longer than me, a lot bit longer than me. And I remember one day we're having this conversation. We always have these conversations, but he's telling me like what I need to do to, take the music seriously, what I had to do as an artist. I'm not just an artist. It's not just about the music. It's about this. You got to worry about the business. You got to worry about this. You got to be this type of person. You can't be this type of person. Right now, you're acting like this. You need to be more like that. And he's like kind of telling me what I need to do. Like, all I have to do is this. All I have to do is that. Not realizing that those things require me to be a completely different person than I am. And I had a problem with that. And it felt like I was giving up a part of myself to quote unquote make it. And I wrote down how I felt. And how I felt was if I do everything that people like my brother think that I should do, I would be selling my soul for $1. And at the time, I was in a questionable relationship that made me feel like if I did everything that she wanted me to do, I would have been selling my soul for a woman. And that's how the writing process came about for it. And I also wanted it to sound like, well, past the writing, when I came up with like the guitar parts and the guitar riff and stuff, I wanted it to sound like this Pink Floyd song the Pink Floyd song that made me want to do what it is that I do. The Time on Dark Side of the Moon. I wanted something that felt like that. It was kind of melancholic and just a little sad, slightly depressive, but very rocky, and soulful. And again, sad, bluesy. So I started coming up with the guitar parts with that in mind. Of course, guitar I mean, David Gilmour was my guitar hero at the time, so heavily influenced by him, but nothing really came up of it. Nothing really came of it until a couple of years later when I went to New York by myself. It's a very big city, very far from home. Again, all by myself. I was staying in some Airbnb, Bushwick, Brooklyn, and was sharing it with these other guys that had their own rooms in the Airbnb. So I felt like a fish out of water, man. And I had all these like just feelings within me. I was like, what am I doing here? Like, why did I want to come up here so bad? And like, what what can I hope to gain from this experience here in New York? Being very uncomfortable. um, while I was up there, one of the reasons I was there was because there was a producer that I was going to meet. And we met, we talked a little bit, and he asked me what I wanted to do. I said, well, there's a song that I've been, working on for a couple of years. I haven't been working on it at all. I just had everything planned out for it for an eventual recording date. I played him the riff. He said, okay, yeah, let's do that. And he programmed some drums and a bass line. We got a rough outline of Soul Just Soul Out. He said, you got any lyrics for it? I said, do I? Like, it's been years. Yes, I do. And so I went into the booth, the recording booth, and the first words that I sang were, he sold his soul for $1. And I sang it in such a way that I had never sang it at home before. And keep in mind, it's been years since I wrote this song. So I've been practicing in the mirror and in my room many times in Atlanta, but it never sounded like it was ready until I started singing it in New York. And I said, wow, this sounds good. And we took we took it from New York, brought it back down here to Atlanta, and we fleshed out the song and made it, a single, made it that.
That's great. I love that story, and, I think you have to sometimes get away from home to realize some things about yourself, whether it's your talents or what you're trying to achieve. It's good to have some of that, perspective when you're far away like that. So what does your brother think of it now? Is he still trying to tell you what to do?
Yes. But before I get I wanted to
Brothers, is that right?
yes, younger brother. I wanted to add being away from home means to me being uncomfortable because when you're home, you know everything. You're familiar with the streets and the people and the buildings and the places and the scenes. But when you go somewhere completely different, there's a little bit of uncomfortability there. And that is essential for growth. And I probably wouldn't the song. I don't know if the song would have sounded the same if I recorded it in Atlanta and didn't go to New York. So saying that to say we as people, we have to push ourselves beyond our known boundaries to, find, you know, our hidden potential. And even though the song, like when I wrote the song, I was frustrated. It was something that I had to get out of my system if I wanted to move forward, with my life, because I wasn't going to sit and just keep being frustrated. I don't want to have to do this. I don't want to have to change I'm enough. I shouldn't have to be someone else to be in a better place. Like that's what I was thinking at the time when I wrote it. Looking back, being a little bit, just a teeny bit wiser than I was then, I don't really look at it as selling my soul anymore. I mean, I definitely did look at it that way before, but I don't see it that way anymore. I see it as growth. Growth can feel very uncomfortable. Growth can feel like you're selling your soul, man, because you're doing things that you don't really feel like are natural to you. And so I just wanted to add that growth is uncomfortable and it's very necessary if you want to be better and better and better and better.
That's a very wise answer. Well, I've only got a couple more questions. One, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your family. I follow Eris. She's a big star in my family. We follow her on Instagram. How does it feel? I mean, I know we've talked about the TV part and being around recordings, but I love what you just said. And I feel like there's probably a lot of wisdom that comes from family discussions, right? I mean, and, when you've got everybody in the house from Ti and Tiny and all the siblings who are all talented in different ways. How do you all lift each other up and help each other?
The answer to that is we probably don't help each other, lift each other up as much as we should, or nearly as much as we should. That's not to say that we don't at all, but it's like everybody's one of the, I don't want to say that there are benefits and drawbacks to just about anything in life. And the benefit of having such a large family is that, you have many people to love. You have many people that love you. You have many people that are there for you if you need them. The drawback to having a really big family is sometimes everybody's going off doing their own thing. Everybody has their own personality. And eh, as you get older, it becomes harder to, I don't know, I don't want to say stick together because we're always sticking together, but it becomes harder to, can't explain it, man. It just feels like everybody's getting older and doing the
Yeah,
same thing.
you're becoming adults. I mean, a lot of you are, adults. So I think it's part of maybe being an adult, but also, even when you're an adult and you don't live, you go out on your own. That's what you're supposed to do when you grow up. But when you get back together with family, it's not always the deep conversations that
Yeah.
happen. It's looking up and having fun or eating or, it becomes more like that. So maybe that's kind of the way it feels for you.
Yeah. I that should change. And my father, I think he wants it to change as well. Like I can kind of see he's just more present these days. And he wants his family around to, just talk and be around each other because, he's been doing what we're trying to do right now his whole life for the most part. And I'm sure he doesn't want moments to just fly by, or he doesn't want us to have our moments with each other just fly by maybe the way they may have when he was younger doing what we're doing.
Tell me about so this is our final sort of topic here. Tell me about the tour, how it's going, and then what's next for you? What's next on the plate?
Man, the tour is wonderful. It's going great. It feels like a mini tour in a way, even though we keep extending, adding new dates and stuff. It feels like a mini tour because I'll spend at most a week somewhere and then come back to Atlanta for a week or two, then go drive out or fly out somewhere else for a couple of days, come back to Atlanta, go there, come back. So it's very broken up, but it still allows me many opportunities on the stage, and it allows me many opportunities to meet different people and become involved with different cities and see where I would call myself living, as a musician. And I get to experience a lot more than if I were to just sit in Atlanta going to jam sessions every Monday or every Wednesday. I'm learning a lot as an artist. I'm learning a lot as a person too, as the person that I want to be. So the tour is phenomenal.
Let's get one more guitar question in quickly. How many guitars do you have, and what are your favorite guitars to play?
I believe I have four, but I only play two. The other two are like collector things that my father got me over the years, and I'd rather not play them. But the two that I do play, it's my first guitar that I ever bought. Soon after I saw that Queen Bohemian Rhapsody movie, I bought an acoustic guitar. It's a Taylor, my baby. Been with me since I was 18. And my second guitar, probably my favorite guitar, is it's a Fender Stratocaster. Love Stratocasters. David Gilmour played one. Jimi Hendrix played one. Who else played one? A couple of other people played one. I'm not going to be going down the list, but those are my absolute favorite guitars to play, Fender Stratocasters.
That's fun. Well, thank you so much, buddy, for this great conversation. And I'm really happy to meet you, and good luck with everything. And keep us posted on those Atlanta shows.
Will do.
All right. Take care.